President Biden has announced a coordinated global action plan to tackle rising petrol prices. Under the plan, 50 million barrels of oil will be released from emergency reserves to help lower fuel prices for Americans. 100 days since the Taliban took power in Afghanistan, and the country is on the brink of a humanitarian catastrophe. The UN says more than half of the population is at risk of going hungry during the winter. Nearly 50 people, several of them children, have been killed after a bus crash in Bulgaria. Most of the victims are thought to be tourists from North Macedonia. And NASA is set to launch a mission to deliberately slam a spacecraft into an asteroid to try to alter its course. They're testing technology that could stop an asteroid colliding with Earth.
The Biden administration says the United States will release 50 million barrels of oil from emergency reserves to increase supply and curb rising crude oil prices. It says the move is in cooperation with other major oil-consuming countries, Japan, India, South Korea, Britain, and China. Based on this, the Japanese government has also decided to release surplus oil reserves into the market. China's foreign ministry says the issue of tennis player Peng Shuai should not be politicized. The remark comes as some international organizations are calling for clarification regarding her case. Peng has reportedly not been seen in public since she made a sexual assault allegation against former Chinese Vice Premier Zhang Gaoli. The editor-in-chief of a Chinese state-backed media outlet posted a video reportedly showing Peng attending a youth tennis tournament ceremony in Beijing on Sunday. The International Olympic Committee also said on Sunday that its president, Thomas Bach, spoke to her on a video call. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian pointed to these developments.
We hope that certain people will cease malicious hyping and politicization of the issue.
Meanwhile, Human Rights Watch on Monday issued a statement criticizing the IOC. It said it did not explain how the video call had been organized. It said the IOC has vaulted itself to active collaboration with Chinese authorities in undermining freedom of speech and disregarding alleged sexual assault. Senior officials from the United States and Taiwan have agreed to jointly tackle the global semiconductor shortage. And apparently with China in mind, they also discussed ways to respond to economic coercion. It was the second session of talks launched last year. The two sides spoke online for about 5 hours. The U.S. was represented by Undersecretary of State Jose Fernandez, and Taiwan by Minister of Economic Affairs Wang Meihua and Minister of Science and Technology Wu Zhengtong. Wang spoke to reporters afterward. She says the two sides reaffirmed the need to jointly bolster supply chains of items such as semiconductors. She says they also discussed a joint response to economic pressure that runs counter to international trade rules. She says the U.S. expressed support for Lithuania, which is boosting ties with Taiwan. Global supply chains are facing disruptions as countries restart their economies. The UN's trade agency has warned the current surge in container freight rates could increase global import price levels and affect the economic recovery from the coronavirus pandemic. The UN Conference on Trade and Development, or UNCTAD, has published a report titled Review of Maritime Transport 2021. The report says container freight rates have been going up since the second half of 2020. It also points out that port congestion due to container and labor shortages has been causing transport delays. The volume of goods transported from China and Southeast Asian nations to Europe and the United States has been growing rapidly as economic activities resume. The report estimates the current surge in container freight rates, if sustained, could push up global import price levels by 10.6% and consumer price levels by 1.5% between now and 2023. UNCTAD warns the current surge in freight rates will have a profound impact on trade and undermine socioeconomic recovery, especially in developing countries. UNCTAD says stakeholders along the maritime supply chain, including carriers, ports, and shippers, should work together to share information and make maritime transport more efficient. Britain's shift away from fossil fuels is gathering pace. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says new homes and buildings in England will be required to have electric vehicle charge points starting next year. Johnson announced the policy on Monday. It applies to supermarkets, workplaces, and buildings that are undergoing large-scale renovations and have more than 10 parking spaces. The government expects the measure will result in as many as 145,000 extra charge points being installed across England per year. Johnson says he wants Britain to adapt to the green industrial revolution. The government has already announced a UK-wide ban on sales of new gas and diesel cars from 2030. It's also been promoting electric vehicles and developing related infrastructure. Turning to Libya, where more than 90 people have reportedly filed their candidacies for next month's presidential election. It'll be the country's first since it won independence in 1951. The presidential and parliamentary elections are scheduled for December 24th. The vote follows a ceasefire last year between warring sides in a civil war. The country had been split into east and west sections since the dictatorship of late leader Muammar al-Gaddafi was toppled 10 years ago. Local media report that the candidates include Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, the second son and one-time heir apparent of the former dictator. The commander of the eastern forces in the civil war, Khalifa Haftar, and interim Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Dbeibeh have also thrown in their hats. The upcoming elections, which are supported by the international community, are regarded as a touchstone for Libya's chances of becoming a stable society. Attention is focused on whether the vote will be free and fair. A senior U.S. official has indicated that a nationwide lockdown won't be needed during the holiday season to keep the coronavirus under control. That's in contrast to the situation in some European countries where restrictions are back in place.
We need to use the tools we have and get more people vaccinated to keep people safe without going backwards in any way, shape, or form. This is under our control.
The U.S. government is urging people to get vaccinated, have booster shots, and ensure that children are jabbed before the holidays. Infections are on the rise again in the country. Health officials say average new daily infections have exceeded 92,000 as of Monday. That's up by 18% from a week earlier. Federal authorities say the number of people traveling by air has recovered to 90% of pre-pandemic levels. Officials are bracing for a possible resurgence as the number of air passengers is predicted to grow as December approaches. People in Germany are once again seeing their plans for the festive season upended by the coronavirus. A number of the country's iconic Christmas markets have been canceled. New cases have recently hit record highs of more than 60,000 on some days. The Christmas market in Dresden, which is said to be the oldest in Germany, has been dropped for the second straight year. The market in Nuremberg also won't go ahead. But organizers in some cities are going ahead. In Cologne, visitors will need to be fully vaccinated or recovered from infection. Officials are patrolling the venue and asking visitors to show proof of vaccination on their smartphones.